On July 6, 2023, US Ambassador to India Eric Garcetti, while responding to a specific and pointed question by the Telegraph journalist on Manipur violence, said that if asked, the US is ready to help.
Because we can bring more collaboration, more projects, more investment if that piece is in place.
The Telegraph's Devadeep Purohit invoked Barack Obama's interview to CNN, where he insinuated that India may face another partition if the minorities are not protected.
Manipur is burning over the last 2 months. So many people have died, and there are attacks on Christian minorities. As US government, this is a concern for the US establishment. And the other thing is US always champions itself as the protector of minority rights. So what are your comments on that?
Sure.
And something that's linked to it, my colleague had also tried to broach this issue, that when you talk about India these days, the concerns are not only about minority rights, their concerns are also about the kind of democracy that we have.
To this specific question, Ambassador Garcetti said,
You know that peace is the precedent for so many other good things. There's been so much progress in the Northeast and in the East here. The country has done some remarkable things in recent years, and those can't continue without peace. So we stand ready, willing, able to assist in any way if asked, but we know this is an Indian matter, and we pray for that peace, that it may come quickly, because we can bring more collaboration, more projects, more investment if that peace is in place.
Is there any ulterior motive of the US in Manipur? Let us find out. Hello and welcome, I am Shreya and you're watching the Pamphlet. Soon after the question was asked to Ambassador Garcetti, his response was picked up by media houses that made his response on Manipur and US willingness to help their headlines. Devadeep Purohit, who asked the question to Ambassador Garcetti, obviously made his statement the headline and made it appear like Ambassador Garcetti on his own flagged the human concerns in Manipur. Soon the Congress ecosystem got activated to cling on to the statement by Ambassador Garcetti. Congress leader Manish Tewari tweeted a screenshot of the Hindu article where the headline screamed that the US is ready to help Manipur if asked. Tewari said, how never has any US diplomat made such a statement about India's internal affair like this? Tewari, while not saying it in as many words, is trying to insinuate that the Manipur violence has been the central government's failure, both on internal security as well as foreign affairs. This, however, raises a few questions. First, was the question to Ambassador Garcetti motivated to get him to talk about human rights concerns, something he had hinted even before he landed in India? Second, what interest does the US possibly have in Manipur? Third, what could have been the intention behind invoking Christian minority in Manipur? The current issue is about Meiteis, who are mostly Hindu tribals, some being Muslim tribals, and illegal Kuki immigrants from Myanmar, who are predominantly Christian tribes. And fourth, are anti-India forces coming together to defame India under PM Modi once again? We deep dived into this, and here is what we found. Ambassador Garcetti, before he even came to India after his appointment, had mentioned that the human rights will be a core part of his engagement in India. In June this year, Ambassador Garcetti said that India and the US will work together to defend democracy and resist coercion. In continuation to that, he was likely given the rope to raise the human rights issue in Manipur violence by asking this specific question. Considering that the US has no locus standi in internal matters of India, the question to Ambassador Garcetti could very well have been asked to invoke a reaction so that people with vested interest could spread propaganda. Something Wall Street Journal's Sabrina Siddiqui did while asking a question to PM Modi. Now the illegal Kuki immigrants from Myanmar against whom the Meiteis are fighting are predominantly a Christian tribe. Meiteis, on the other hand, are predominantly Hindus. Garcetti was specifically questioned about the Christian minority. You see, the Kukis have moved the Supreme Court. An NGO, Manipur Tribal Forum, had sought army protection for the Christian Kuki tribes. A bench composed of CJI Chandrachud and Justices P.S. Narasimha and Manoj Mishra heard the petition. The Kukis were represented by senior advocate Colin Gonsalves in the Supreme Court. Who is Colin Gonsalves? Gonsalves is a Supreme Court lawyer and founder of Human Rights Law Network, an NGO. HRLN is part of an organization, Socio-Legal Information Center. In its now defunct website, it had put up a list of donors. Investigative journalist Vijay Patel, in a tweet, had shared its archive link of donors, which included George Soros Open Society Foundation. Other donors included the European Commission, Christian Aid, Ford Foundation, German Embassy, Sweden Embassy, and also the American Embassy. Further, the HRLNS Gujarat branch was being run by Nirjari Sinha, anti-Modi lawyer activist and one of the directors of a foundation that runs propaganda website Alt News. Speaking of Alt News, it was Gonsalves who appeared for Alt News co-founder Mohammed Zubair in Supreme Court in July 2022. Zubair had challenged Allahabad High Court order, refusing to quash FIR against his tweet, referring to Hindu seers as hate mongers in the Supreme Court. He was represented by Colin Gonsalves. The HRLNS claims that it has been providing free legal aid to illegal Rohingya immigrants who are detained across the country. Gonsalves also defended the Jamia rioters who took to violence in December 2019 while protesting against the Citizenship Amendment Act that fast-tracked Indian citizenship of religious minorities from 3 neighboring Islamic countries, Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh, who fled their countries facing religious persecution. He also joined the protest in Delhi, along with all-weather professional protester Yogendra Yadav. Speaking of Yogendra Yadav, you know what was his latest project? Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra. Yadav has a long-standing relationship with Congress. After all, the veteran protest was part of Sonia Gandhi established NAC that acted as the de facto PMO during PM Dr. Manmohan Singh's tenure. Sonia Gandhi set up NAC, National Advisory Committee, on 4th of June 2004, days after her inner voice asked her to step aside and not become India's Prime Minister. Sonia Gandhi was hailed as the Christian woman who stepped aside to let Sikh man take oath from Muslim president as Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy. Well, the good old days of democracy. Files released by the Government of India in 2017 revealed that Sonia Gandhi's NAC overstepped its role of providing inputs in policy formulation to influencing policy decisions. Officer was summoned, reports sought by the NAC headed by Sonia Gandhi. Her decision was final. Dr. Manmohan Singh, as Prime Minister, carried out instructions as given by NAC headed by Sonia Gandhi. Democracy was thriving when the PMO did not even have a say in the governance. Amongst other activists, Harsh Mandar and Yogendra Yadav were core members of the NAC and formulated laws as per their own will and whim. While Mandar was a member of the committee that drafted anti-Hindu communal violence bill, Yadav was a member of the NAC on right to education. Mandar also tried to save 611 terrorist Ajmal Kasaf from hanging. Oh, by the way, Colin Gonsalves had requested the Supreme Court in March 2020 to intervene in proceedings against Harsh Mandar over his remarks on the judiciary. Mandar had given an inflammatory speech at the Jamia Millia Islamia during anti-CAA protests that eventually turned violent.
ये लड़ाई पहले हमारे देश के लिए है, फिर हमारे संविधान के लिए है, और उसके बाद ये लड़ाई मोहब्बत के लिए है.
Harsh Mandar is also linked with George Soros and has received funding from him. This brings us to the anti-India forces and their interference in India's internal matters. Here are some things that are now very clear. Supreme Court advocate Colin Gonsalves had been fighting human rights, especially Christian causes. Illegal Kuki immigrants from Myanmar are predominantly Christians. The Telegraph journalist, while speaking to US Ambassador Garcetti, invoked Barack Obama and his minority comment. He specifically asked about Christian minorities, while Obama was speaking about Muslim minorities. Ambassador Garcetti, who had made it abundantly clear he keeps human rights as the core, says how the US would be ready to help if asked. If asked covers up the tracks, so it does not appear like the US wants to interfere where it has no locus standi. George Soros, Ford Foundation via Colin Gonsalves, who is representing NGO for Cookies in Supreme Court, are now clearly involved in India's affairs. Well, who else recently met a George Soros aide? Rahul Gandhi. During his recent trip to the US, senior Congress leader and disqualified Wayanad MP Rahul Gandhi met Sunita Vishwanath, a self-proclaimed practicing Hindu who runs an NGO, Hindus for Human Rights. The foundation that has been receiving funding from Soros-linked organizations has also been closely associated with Islamist organizations that has been working very hard to peddle anti-India propaganda that Muslims and other minorities in India under PM Modi are under threat. Rahul Gandhi, during his US visit, also had closed room private meetings at the White House, the official residence of the US president. As 2024 elections closes in, the regime changers have upped their ante. This time, they have invested in the Mohabbat ki Dukaan, it seems. Thank you for watching. If you liked the content, do like, share and subscribe to our channel, The Pamphlet.